Welcome back, NoDQ Galaxy, to a brand new NoDQ review, number 310. I am the moderator, Virtue, being joined by this week's elite panel of the review. Aaron Rift is here. JJ Williams is back. Gino is here. Colin, the Cleaver Andrew, has finally returned. And Matthew is here. Matthew, have you been on the review before? I know you've been on predictions and whatnot.
Technically, this is my first review. Was part of the 300 review because it was just everybody. But yeah, this is technically my first review. Yeah, well,
then you were on that one. But yeah, okay. So what's up? How's it going?
It's going good. I mean, better than the last couple of weeks, but I won't really get into that. But have had a rough couple of weeks.
Well, hey, you're here on the review tonight, and we'll talk wrestling. So stay tuned. You know how this works. I will be back at you shortly. Colin, what's going on?
What's up, bro? Been a long time. Dude, it's been, I don't know. I think the last time I was on was 300, if I remember correctly. Just working, dad stuff, school's in session. So really not a whole lot, but I like that we're doing Tuesdays for now because it frees me up because I'm off on Tuesdays. So
yeah, and it's, slow season for wrestling, kind of, sort of, end of the year. But here we are, trudging along, doing it every week, and we still have our little crew, so that's good. So, Colin, stay tuned. I'll be back to you shortly. Gino, what's up?
Not too much. Thanks for having me again. Happy to be back, and I like the topics that we're going to be talking tonight. Don't forget to super chat in some more.
Yeah, we got a couple, and I'm sure that'll take us a whole hour. And just so everybody knows, there could be possibly some potential spoilers because Raw was taped. We'll have to see where this discussion goes. Maybe the person that might mention them will give everybody like 10 seconds to tune out, mute, whatever, if you don't want to hear them. But stay tuned. What's up, JJ?
Not a whole lot, Virtue. How are you doing this evening?
Good.
Good to be back on the review one more time with this ragtag bunch of misfits. Good to see Colin back. Matthew, good to see you. Gino, once again. Let's do the thing.
All right, well, stay tuned. I'll be back to you shortly because we have to go to Aaron Rift next. Aaron, what's up?
I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to tonight's panel because this is a unique one. I don't think we've ever had this specific lineup before. Colin doesn't get a chance to be on too often, so it's always nice to get him on. It's his first time with Gino and Matthew, and it's been a while if Colin has been on with JJ, but happy to have everybody on tonight. And we got Survivor Series. It's going to be War Games, 2 matches inside the structure, the men's match and the women's match. We'll be talking about that. It's a unique situation also because, as Virtue mentioned, Raw was taped. We're going to try to avoid talking direct spoilers, but if things start getting heated, to make a point, we might have to reference what happened on Monday Night Raw. And by the way, we don't know for sure the exact lineups for the War Games matches, but we'll be talking about it, giving our overall thoughts on the creative direction. And again, we'll try not to spoil things too much, but we'll give a warning if we do. Anyways, Virtue, let's get this show going.
Well, before we get to that, I want to talk promo, wrestling promo. And, we can see wrestlers beef with each other on Twitter. Usually if it's an older wrestler, they're trying to find a way onto the show to be in an angle with younger wrestler. But let's kind of do this. Obviously what I'm referring to is the little thing MJF and Bully Ray have been doing recently. I always like stuff like that. MJF, one of the best promos of today's generation. I don't really remember Bully Ray being a promo guy. I know in TNA, when he was Bully, he did a lot of promos. So, but like pre that, I don't think that was his thing. But he's on a talk show, a podcast. He's good with his words when it comes to wrestling. So I'm sure he could hold his own. But MJF is a whole other league when you're talking about today's wrestlers. So I don't think, I'm sure Bully's just trying to work an angle. Now, he's got a WWE Legends contract. So maybe he's trying to lure MJF over down the road. Who knows? But let's talk about what would some dream promo scenarios be or maybe your favorite promo battles of the past that we've had or that you would like to see. So JJ Williams, I am going to start with you. And it could be anything wrestling, any promotion. You know how it works. So what TNA do you and go ahead.
Well, why has it got to go to TNA? I mean, just because I actually watched the product there,
Vince Russo used to write for them.
I know he wrote for all the companies. Vince Russo don't get me started on Russo. That isn't even what we're talking about right now. He doesn't get the credit he deserves. But a promo battle that I always wanted to see, and neither man is really doing much in wrestling these days, but Jake the Snake Roberts and Raven, I always thought would have a great promo off, because they're very much from the same cloth. Neither one of them really raises their voice all that much. Jake was always so calm and collected in his promos, and Raven kind of had the same thing going for him, especially in ECW. I'd like to see Max Caster and Cena in a freestyle battle. I know that Caster would get cooked, but I think it would be hilarious to see him try to go toe-to-toe with Cena. Those are just a couple off the top of my head.
Have there been some memorable ones of the past you would rate up there as the upper echelon?
The first one that comes to my mind would be Heyman and Bischoff were pretty good.
And there's a lot of them. I mean, we think about it. If you go back, just like mentioning certain wrestlers like The Rock or CM Punk, I'm sure there's a lot that we could pull from that. MJF, the last several years. But if something else comes to mind as we're going around, raise your hand. You know how this works. But I'm going to pop over to Colin next, because it's been a minute since he's been on the review. So let's say what you have to say.
Well, I mean, we've been saying MJF a lot. MJF. So we've already seen MJF and Punk, but MJF and Paul Heyman, that would be pretty damn incredible. And JJ brought up Max Caster. Switch out Cena and throw Enzo in there. Enzo was always super fire on the mic, and some of us still have Enzo's back. And let's see, favorite promos. I always loved Chris Jericho and Stephanie McMahon. Those promos back and forth with each other were always so classic. Really though, like MJF, you can put him with pretty much anybody. And one thing I really wish I would have been able to see is like this version of Malachi Black, Aleister Black, whatever you want to call him, and Bray Wyatt. Like if you could somehow do like a House of Black faction versus the Wyatt Six, whatever. I would settle for Bo, Uncle Howdy, whatever you want to call him. I would settle for him and Aleister Black to have a cryptic dark. I think they could do it really well. But no, if I had to pick one at the top of the chain right now, it's definitely MJF and Paul Heyman.
Now, when you said Enzo, who did you have him paired up against?
Max Caster.
Okay, and I get it. I'm going to throw mine in the hat now just so nobody else says it. And there's a lot of great ones you could combine, but like the one for me that would be the pinnacle of all promos, it would be Enzo and it would be CM Punk. And and again, doesn't matter what they would be beefing about or whatever. To me, that would be great cinema. We all know Enzo took the whole cruiserweight division in the palm of his hand and made it relevant just by mostly talking. So I'll leave it at that. But yeah, Punk anybody, MJF anybody. Some of my favorite ones in the past. Jeff mentioned it. Vince McMahon needs some credit with some of his promos, even if he's just kind of serious boss McMahon. Punk and McMahon had some really good stuff.
Yeah.
And I'll always remember my favorite Punk promo of all of them, even more than the pipe bomb. I believe it was 2013. He had the yellow GTS shirt, but it was the respect. And then Vince was the counterpart in that promo. And he was talking about, you're no Stone Cold. You're no the likes of Andre the Giant. That promo was absolute gold. It ended up with Punk slapping Vince in the face, and they, had that confrontation later in the show. Excellent stuff. That's what promos are supposed to do. Early in the show, hook you till the last segment, like they used to back in the day. All right, Gino. Now I will go over to you.
Awesome. Yeah. So a lot of things had come to mind. Jeff mentioned it in the chat, but the first thing that I wanted to see when I saw the topic was Paul Heyman and The Rock going at it on the mic. And I've been on this channel a bunch lately talking about how I want Heyman to do some baby face work. And I just think that could be real good. Now, there is some level of, when Rock's going to slap the taste out of people's mouths and stuff like that. He's probably not going to threaten and do things with Heyman like that. So we might not have the best of it. So then I was thinking, okay, what else would I like to see? Obviously, we have MJF and CM Punk have happened before, but I would love to see it more now after Punk has had his comeback to WWE. You guys mentioned MJF. Everybody's mentioned MJF. I wrote probably 10 different pairings down here, and MJF is in almost half of them. And so, I mean, obviously MJF is a great promo. I would love to see him versus Cena. I would love to see Cody and Cena kind of go at it with heel face things. So I've got a lot of things here. I threw in a jokey one, Hulk Hogan and Batista going at it. I know that'll never happen, but I thought that one would have been pretty fun too. Now, as far as stuff from the past, right? Because I thought that was a great addition, Virtue, to mention. We mentioned Punk and Rock. I think the Cena Rock stuff back then, obviously that was leading up into the WrestleMania I went to. Cena Punk stuff is always great. I thought, honestly, as of recently, dude, the Punk and Drew McIntyre stuff was when they just kind of let them go at it. And he's like, what paragon of virtue named you, the chosen one? I was just like, dude, this is better than it could have been written. So that's one of the ones, especially, that comes to mind. I also wrote down Vince McMahon and Tony Khan. No, that's never going to happen, but it would be something to see them go at it and have words with each other. So that's kind of where I'm at with it.
I got another dream one I'm throwing in there, and it's one that is going to happen. And I wouldn't have said this 6-7 years ago.
Okay.
But over the last 4 years, I'm definitely going to say it. And I think you guys know what it's going to be. Roman Reigns and The Rock. Roman Reigns, not Paul Heyman. Roman Reigns and The Rock. So it's going to be interesting. And I hope Roman's going to be ready for that, because that's going to be a big deal when they finally do feud. And who knows when it's going to be, but I'm hoping for WrestleMania. Okay.
I hope The Rock takes it easy on him a little bit because I don't know.
Again, it's a different Roman. So no, probably what would happen is if Rock, they would probably get together, and if Rock would use his experience to tell Roman what to say, like, you know what I mean? Rock would go out there to make sure Roman looked good. So I'm not too worried about that. I don't think he's going to go out there and beef Roman like he would have Cena. That's a little different dynamic with them. Matthew, what do you think?
Well, a lot of people already said some of the ones I would think of, but definitely anything with MJF and Drew, MJF and The Rock, MJF and Cena again, Ricky Starks. I think he would be great, especially if he had one with The Rock, especially being, he's been considered the vanilla midget Rock. I think he'd have some great promos. Some of my favorite from the past, of course, the whole Rock Austin feud, the Rock Hogan feud. I know he's controversial, but a lot of Jim Cornette's promos were always great. And as a joke, I'd love to see Jim Cornette and Tony Khan go at it. It would break the internet. But I mean, there's a lot of people, but yeah, nowadays it's pretty much MJF, Punk, Starks, Drew. Those are like your top guys besides Rock and Roman and Cody that I would really love to just see have just great battles in promos.
Now I have another one from the past that we have to mention. John Cena and Kurt Angle. they were more like the rap battle stuff and the comedy,
Yeah.
but those were classic. And anytime you scroll, or you see a clip of something old and you stop to watch the whole thing, it's a classic. And of course, I wanted to mention that because that was one of them. All right, Aaron, over to you and the NoDQ Galaxy.
All right. First of all, for these dream promos, are we talking about ones that are possible or any from history?
It's up to you. I mean,
Any pairings?
any
Because
pairings. Yeah. I mean, it could be something
Yeah,
that
it's a
never
dream.
happened and could never happen because someone's passed.
right.
But
Because I'm not sure if anybody mentioned Roddy Piper, but I'd love to see Roddy Piper against any of the names we mentioned, like MJF or John Cena or The Rock. Roddy Piper was one of the all-time greats, and I feel like he needs to get a little bit of that recognition. As far as promo battles in history, that's tough to say. I mean, I really liked the John Cena and Rock promos in 2011, 2012. Like, those were real promo battles going back and forth. And CM Punk, John Cena, and then going back even further, obviously Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon. They had great back and forths. Triple H and The Rock had great back and forths. And even before that, Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart had some good back and forths. Bret Hart and Steve Austin going back on the mic. So there's a lot of those classic ones that I really enjoyed.
Pillman and Steve Austin, they did have a run there of some good promos.
If Pillman had lived, he would have been another one that would have had some really great ones. Like, I would have loved to have seen Pillman and Austin go back and forth on the mic. Like, that would have been gold. But yeah,
Remember, they did
unfortunately,
feud. They did feud, but it was before the big height of Austin 316.
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate, but yeah, if Pillman had lived and was in the peak of the Attitude Era, that would have been money right there. Like, they would have done so great with that. And Mick Foley and Triple H had a lot of great promos. But yeah, as far as today goes, like, if I could put any two guys together, I mean, obviously you guys mentioned MJF. What does that say? MJF's one of the best promo guys in wrestling, and they don't really have him doing much in AEW right now. He needs to be going out there and dropping bombs, and he hasn't been doing much lately. But MJF versus The Rock, or MJF versus John Cena, or MJF versus CM Punk again in WWE. The thing is, though, could MJF cut a great promo without having to resort to profanity or crossing the PG line? That remains to be seen if he ever does end up in WWE. But yeah, Heyman and MJF would be a great one too. We do have a couple of super chats here. Shout out to Walter Cruz. He'll be back on next week, I'm thinking. He says, just to trigger JJ, Thanksgiving. What does that mean? Thanksgiving.
He's referencing something that happened on Saturday Shenanigans last week where we got a donation about should Thanksgiving just be skipped and moved to Christmas, and I went on a bit of a diatribe. So he's just trying to ruffle my feathers.
All right. Well, it does feel like that, right? Because everybody already has the Christmas decorations out. It's like Thanksgiving's almost an afterthought.
Yeah.
You mad about that?
No,
Oh,
no, I'm a Christmas guy, so it doesn't bother me at all.
Okay.
Like I said, it sparked a rant. I actually just uploaded the rant as its own separate video on my channel, so if anybody wants to see it, I'll plug it again at the end. But yeah.
All right, there you have it, folks. JJ Williams is fine if we just get rid of Thanksgiving and go straight to Christmas. I mean, we pretty much do anyways, right?
Yep.
All right, Mr. Anderson sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate it. Says, didn't The Rock call Paul Heyman Twinkie tits in a promo? He probably did, or somebody. I mean, he might have said it to anybody. The Rock had some of the best lines, like towards, what was his name? Kevin Kelly. He liked to rip into Kelly. He liked to rip into Lillian Garcia. I mean, he was all over the place. Jonathan Coachman. He had some awesome lines. So yeah, The Rock. I'd love to hear some promo battles with him and Roman Reigns, like Virtue said. The Rock and Cody Rhodes, and I think we'll begin those in the future. So those will be really great. Looking forward to those. We'll see if CM Punk and Roman Reigns ever get to go back and forth on the mic. Hell, maybe John Cena and Roman Reigns will go back at it one more time on the mic. You never know. But yeah, great topic, Virtue. And yeah, I think I've pretty much said my piece. Gino, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I just a couple honorable mentions. LA Knight and Logan Paul are really good on the mic, not against each other, but like they could be involved in some type of dream promos. I just feel like we didn't mention them or any women, to be honest, but those were coming to my mind. So
I feel like we're forgetting some from WCW. Maybe not. I don't
Ric
know.
Flair.
Yeah.
I mean, Ric Flair, if you know, we were talking about like ones that are probably not going to happen, but you know, Ric Flair versus MJF or, you know, any of the current guys, LA Knight, that would be really entertaining. But yeah, The Rock, Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, put them in there with some of the modern guys. You got gold right there. And Chris Jericho, too. Jericho in his peak.
Yeah. Not this Jericho, the learning tree.
Nah.
Okay, so the Bloodline is officially reunited in terms of the original Bloodline, except Solo. So Roman, Jimmy, Jay, and then Sammy. So we anticipated, and it's going to happen, a War Games match at Survivor Series. And I know when we talked about this before, you know, it's like, well, there's 4. If Sammy joins the good Bloodline, you got 4, and then the bad Bloodline, you got Solo, the Tongas, and Jacob. There it is, 4-on-4. I said, WWE's probably going to do 5-on-5. I was throwing Cody and Owens out there, especially I think it was right after they did that attack angle. So here we are. It's going to be a 5-on-5 men's match, War Games match, and who are the other ones going to be? And this is where that spoiler comes into play for next week's Tape Raw. And there's going to be a women's War Game match too. So if you want to comment on that, go ahead, have at it. But this is going to be 5-on-5 for the men's. And where do we think it's going to go? For some of us that read ahead, it is definitely kind of obvious, but it doesn't mean it's been booked yet. They can always change it just based on the little thing that did happen. But I'm going to start with you, Colin, on this one. What's traditionally these War Games matches since they've been having them? Have they always been 5-on-5, or did they have some 4-on-4 ones? I know they did it in NXT as well. Have they always been 5-on-5?
They
It would make sense
NXT,
if so.
So in NXT, they
Can't tell.
did 4-on-4 because we had, I believe it was the Undisputed Era against Keith Lee, Tommaso Ciampa, Dijakovic, and then returning Kevin Owens. So that was like the first War Game back. But the last few years they've been 5. They don't need to be though. If this one doesn't need to be, because if what's on the internet is true and where they're going with this, if it's not family, why are they involved with it? Like this is pure bloodline story. I mean, I know people are going to say Sammy's not family either, but he's part of the OG. He's been in it longer than Solo. Okay, so like they don't need to make it 5-on-5. If it was going to be 5-on-5 on Solo's team, it would need to be The Rock. That's the only acceptable person I'm going to be happy with, except for what's the little brother's name that's signed? Hikaleo, is that it? Yeah. Or Talatonga. Bring him in. Don't make it anybody else but those 2 people. And then on Roman's side, I don't know who you can bring in. They just signed Lance, but nobody really knows him. You know what I mean? Like, so what kind of pop is he gonna make? You know what I mean? Like, so it's hard to pick right now, and I really don't want to spoil anything for anyone out there. That's why I'm kind of trying to circle around it, but I don't know
We'll leave it up
because
to Aaron.
I know, and if he breaks that ice, then I am going to need to circle back on
channel,
a few
yeah.
things. But no, I mean, leave it 4-on-4 unless you're legit gonna have Bloodline versus Bloodline. No outsiders,
Yeah.
no former alliances, no, oh, we're gonna scratch your back so you scratch our bullshit. Like, none of that. Just keep it, we the ones versus they ain't the ones.
So a couple things, Colin. Back
Yeah.
if they if they wanted 5-on-5, why it was just too obvious that it could have been Cody on Roman's side because they just teamed up. Where The Rock came out there at the end of Bad Blood and did his thing. And then Owens, because they just created that feud, turning heel. Hey, why not join the Bad Bloodline? He was always against Roman's bloodline. If they did 5-on-5 without family, that to me is the most obvious. Whatever the spoiler thing is out there, it's like, what? And I don't know if Aaron will want to talk about it or not. We'll wait for him. But back to if you said The Rock was involved, like,
Yes.
that would be great. I would actually, as obvious as this would be, I wouldn't have him just join the Bad Bloodline. He's still with Roman. We've never seen him and Roman beef yet. He would be the 5th guy on the original Bloodline. Yes, it would be obvious probably what would happen, but like just roll with it that way and make the Bad Bloodline find a 5th guy. I'm sure they could pull somebody off.
Yeah.
That's what I would do if you had 5-on-5 with The Rock and then save the big turn, even if it's obvious.
Well,
and at that point, we would all be excited about it because, yes, they're going to do it finally.
Yeah.
Aaron.
So I was kind of thinking like they could have done an invasion style angle where new bloodline gets a 5th guy and then Roman's really desperate. And then on I guess it can't be the go home because the go home is being taped, but they could do it. And that's a little silly, but yeah, they're giving talent off for Thanksgiving. We don't know why this week's Raw was taped for next week. Next week's Raw was taped on Monday. We don't know why that was the case. I mean, there's no tour internationally or any holiday coming up next week. So yeah, we're perplexed on that one, but we do have a SmackDown coming up. The final SmackDown before Survivor Series will be taped. But anyways, the SmackDown before that's live, you could have The Rock show up and be the 5th guy, and be the baby face. And yeah, we all probably could see the turn coming.
That's
just
okay.
like Invasion, Steve Austin came out there, but then turned against his Team WWF at the Invasion pay-per-view. But this time I think it'd be a lot more effective in building up The Rock versus Roman Reigns. So I would have really liked that idea. I agree 100% with Colin. If it wasn't going to be The Rock involved, it should have just been 4-on-4. But I'll give my opinion in just a little bit.
Yeah, stay tuned. All right,
Yeah.
Matthew.
Hang
Go
on,
ahead.
hang on 1 minute. So, but this is the way I would do it real quick. If you did it 4-on-4 and you want to bring in Hikaleo, bring him in as someone who just comes in. Right when you think the OGs are about to do it, out of nowhere, here comes this big, tall Samoan and just wrecks house, and you give the War Games win to 2.0. Because here's your fallback. If you can't get The Rock and Roman, you can still keep this going with Roman and Solo and have some type of crazy bloodline rules Uafala on a spike, or whatever, match. And you can have that backup option for Roman, who doesn't need to be in the title picture right now if the end game is not going to be Rock and Roman at WrestleMania.
Okay.
I don't know. It's something in the
Yeah.
back pocket.
Gives us opportunities, gives us choices. Okay, Matthew.
I mean, I'm pretty much in agreement with Colin. It should have been 4v4. The 5v5, I think, could have worked if it was Hikaleo and Lance and these shows weren't being taped. It would give us time to actually get kind of immaculated with is that the right word? Accommodated with these 2 new guys. But with the fact that 4 shows are being taped, it doesn't give you any time to kind of get used to anybody. And the 2 possible choices should be doing something else on their own. Now, I am kind of intrigued by one of the people being in the possible match, but yeah, it should be. I agree. It should be 4v4 at this point. And I think The Rock will be involved, but that's probably going to be after the match. I will say that this is a lot better booked than whatever they're doing with the women's match, because that's just a complete mess. Because from what we know on that, you've got Io now teaming with Bianca, Naomi, and Jade, who she's been feuding with, and it looks like Tiffany and Naya are now teaming with Liv and Raquel, who they've just been feuding with. So it just feels like they were like, oh, we got to have a women's war game match. So let's just
Yeah.
throw everybody together when this should just be a regular Survivor Series match and not a
Yes.
war games match.
Now, keep in mind, they might be having Cody away from this thing for a reason, because they don't even want The Rock, as much as it makes sense with this bloodline. I think his first thing of business is still Cody Rhodes, because of when he left, the last thing he did, holding that title, putting that thing in Cody's hands. So they might not want Cody as part of this match, because The Rock's not going to be anywhere near this bloodline thing yet, because he's got to have the business with Cody. Something to look, just a little give thought.
Which I agree with too. KO and I know a lot of people have been like, oh, KO and Cody should be part of this. No, KO and Cody have their own thing. And of course, people are like, oh, Zilla Fatu should be. No, Zilla Fatu's not ready. He's too green. And from what we've heard, he's problematic. He thinks because he's part of the Anoa'i family, he should immediately be thrusted into the spotlight. He honestly should be one of the first people in the WWE ID thing, learning how to be a wrestler, learning the tricks of the trade, and earning the spot within his family's bloodline.
All right. Well, thank you, Matthew. Gino, I'm already forgetting who started this topic. You, Colin?
Colin.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know where I'm at now. Gino.
Awesome. Yeah. So to piggyback off of what you said, Virtue, real quick. I don't want Cody involved either, but I could, but a way to kind of play into The Rock just being on the heel side of things from the jump and not having to do the turn that would be expected. If, like, say the OG Bloodline recruited Cody and then Rock's music hit, like whenever the recruiting happens and they're all in the ring, and then he comes out and he's like, why are you teaming up with Cody? Like, and then he just joins the other bloodline.
Oh, that's fair.
To combat Cody. But again, I don't really want that to be the way it goes, but I could see if they did want to, thrust Cody in there. Like you guys said, though, Colin, Matthew, everybody, Aaron on his review, it should be 4v4. It feels like the only reason they mentioned 5v5 was to get the whole will he, won't he with Sami Zayn. And now that it was like obvious that it's 4v4, like why are there even why are we even going for 5v5? Oh, it's because it's tradition. Oh, it's war games, whatever. It just feels like it dilutes the intensity, right? Because when it's just the people involved with the bloodline and just those in the family, plus honorary Us, of course, it feels more important, I guess. It just feels more meaningful when you're just throwing in two people who have their own thing going on to be part of this other stuff. It's just it just dilutes the meaningfulness of the match. I mean, I guess you could play like you said, Colin, like you could play later down the line. You could still have that 4v4. You still could save that, I guess, but it just feels like this is the time to do it. Like everybody's been mentioning, Rock debuted at Survivor Series. It feels right. But another person who re-debuted at Survivor Series last year who hasn't been mentioned at all is CM Punk. Maybe he's involved in this as the fifth member on one side, right? You've got Paul Heyman, who's presumably going to be coming back. Maybe he influences CM Punk to help out those guys. Again, I would really prefer it just be 4v4. And total long shot, they're not going to do this because there are spoilers out there and stuff. But before I had read the spoilers, I was thinking, I know it doesn't really suit a War Games match, but the Bloodline is lacking females. It just is. Every other group in the WWE has a female. So I was thinking we could this could be your way to bring Naomi and Nia in to the Bloodline storylines on opposite sides. Then they can only wrestle each other and all that stuff. But Naomi is a Fatu and Nia is cousins or however she relates to The Rock and that family. So it would make sense. It wouldn't dilute it. It would definitely be family versus family still. And then the spoilers happen. So nothing's set in stone, but it sure feels like that's where they're going to go with it. I don't like that either. Like, if this is what we're going to do, if like the spoiler segment is what's going to happen, like, should just be 4-on-4. That's how
Now,
I feel about it.
do you think they're thinking of this is, well, hey, you know, it's a War Games match, but Survivor Series, in the history of Survivor Series, we've always pitted heels with each other, all forming an alliance and baby faces. So we can put a random heel with the heel group and a random baby face with the baby face group. And it's Survivor Series. You know what I mean? Like, I'm playing devil's advocate on why they might go that direction.
In a traditional Survivor Series match, yeah, that makes sense, because it used to be Raw versus SmackDown, brand versus brand, or however it was going. So it made sense. You get people who might not like each other, but you're going to have to coexist for the sake of your brand. And then that kind of leads me to the women's match. If they're going to make it a War Games just for the sake of having a women's War Games match, it's, again, it kind of ruins the equality they're trying to go for there. And that should be reserved for more of a traditional Survivor Series. That way you can have enemies of 2 weeks ago, Liv and Nia, teaming up together, and it would make a little bit more sense. So I would love to see that as a traditional Survivor Series match, where you get 1-on-1 instead of just basically pushing out Survivor Series for the War Games name, like they did with Hell in a Cell and things of that nature.
Yeah. Okay. And hey, War Games is part of Survivor Series now, so they want to keep the tradition of WCW alive, I guess. But which was a fall brawl, right? And I know Thanksgiving's in the fall. Survivor Series is Thanksgiving time. Who knows? They're just throwing it all together is what they're doing. JJ.
I can't really offer too much that hasn't already been stated. I'm a believer in the 5-on-5 concept. I get that this year it kind of seems a little shoehorned, a little bit forced. But even going back to the old original Survivor Series matches, it was 5-on-5. You know, War Games was 5-on-5. The one thing that I wanted to throw out there that nobody has mentioned as a possibility, and I know spoilers are out there, so we'll just speak hypothetical, even though we all kind of already know where things are going. But nobody is mentioning the possibility of Paul Heyman as the fifth guy on Roman's team. And before everybody starts laughing,
Too late.
let's not forget that Paul Ellering, J.J. Dillon, and Jim Cornette were all involved in War Games matches back in the old NWA Crockett era War Gameses. You want to talk about keeping it family? Heyman has been by Roman's side since day one-ish. Heyman has got to get revenge on Solo and the New Bloodline for powerbombing him through the table. I'm not saying that he would be a great addition to the team, but as the fifth man to come in so that he doesn't have to do a whole lot, take that many bumps.
And then he turns on the original Bloodline because that's Paul Heyman.
It's something that hasn't been considered, and managers in War Games is not a new thing. It's been done historically.
Well,
Ellering accompanied the Road Warriors. Dillon accompanied the Horsemen. Midnight Express were accompanied by Cornette. So it was like they've all been in the matches and participated.
Let's see, JJ, you sparked discussion. Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah.
And Colin, I don't know if you had something too.
He
and then
did,
we'll go back, and then we'll go back to JJ.
I don't know if we have the same idea or not, but to go off of what JJ said, if they were going to have a fifth guy, Paul Heyman could come out and bring out Brock Lesnar as the fifth guy to be part of the group. That would be hot. And Paul Heyman is bringing out Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar is getting revenge on behalf of Paul Heyman for what was done to the Bloodline. That would have made logical sense. They took out Paul Heyman, and Brock Lesnar, even though he's had his differences with Paul, he comes back and he's willing to. Brock Lesnar, he doesn't really hold grudges. He just wants to go out there and kick ass and beat up the guys that took out Paul Heyman. So Brock Lesnar would do it, get a payday. And Brock's mind, he just wants to go out there, beat up somebody, and collect a paycheck. So it would make sense to have Brock Lesnar be the fifth guy, but that's not going to happen. Anyways, Colin, you have a thought?
I was going to say the exact same thing as you.
Okay.
I should have let you go. My bad. But hey, there you go.
Gino, you got something?
Yeah. Following along with what JJ said, if they put Heyman in the match, that could be a very organic way to get Solo his own wise man, potentially also in the match. If we're anticipating that the two bloodline groups are going to continue to be a thing moving forward after this match, Solo's going to need a wise man at some point. So if they do put Paul Heyman in the match, that's a way to get another non-threatening physical presence in there to be the fifth member for Solo's team. I don't know who, but if we're following that line, I think that could be
Dude,
a fun way to do it.
and I swear, if this whole Solo and Roman thing for the Ula Fale gets dragged out till WrestleMania, that's Roman's WrestleMania match. And yeah, he would beat Solo and win it back. Great moment. Have Solo on the big stage in a big match, just because they're gonna let Cody and Rock main event, and that's exactly what Vince Russo said. I want him to be wrong this time. I'm a big Russo fan. I do not want this to be what happens here. But all right, JJ, back to you.
That's really the only thing I was gonna add. As far as the women, I missed the end of the live Raw last night, so I didn't even see what happened, and I don't care enough about the women's matches. It seems to be developing for Survivor Series, which sucks because I'm a huge fan of women's wrestling.
Is that going to be 5-on-5 as well?
Yeah.
Yes, that is confirmed 5-on-5. All the participants have been confirmed for that match.
Go ahead and announce it so I can give my thoughts on it. Anybody in the chat that doesn't want to hear it,
Well, I mean, it's pretty much all the people that were at the end of Raw.
But I missed the end of Raw last night, like I said. So
well, it's Bianca, Jade Cargill, Io Sky, Naomi was out there, and I'm thinking like this is very random. But then I'm like, oh, they're doing the War Games match. And then you have the other people that were mentioned earlier, Nia Jax and Tiffany Stratton.
Aren't there only 4 people on the heel team now?
There are 5, but they're not going to be revealed till next week's Raw.
Right. Next week's Raw, we find out the 5th member. We're just going to say the SmackDown one. It was Candice LeRae. And then there's somebody who shows up for the Raw side. And I mean, we're not going to say, we don't have to.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But
the Io one is the most perplexing thing to me because it would make more sense for it to be Bayley. Because Bayley and Naomi have been running as a team.
Yeah.
And Naomi's kind of been the third woman alongside Bianca and Jade. Even though there's trust issues with Bianca and Bayley, that way you can spiral into a program leading through the Rumble and into Mania season.
I think Io is involved with Liv in the title picture, so they probably just want their opponent across from each other.
It's lame.
It is. It's stupid.
You know how we're picking this apart? Like, we still have to admit one thing. This is better than Raw versus SmackDown Survivor Series. I mean, right?
And we still have to see.
We at least agree on that.
And we still have to see how it plays out on TV. But, I'll give my thoughts on it
Go
now.
ahead,
So,
Aaron.
as far
You
as
good?
the women's
JJ,
match
you good?
goes,
Okay.
I'm going to try not to outright say what the spoilers are, but as far as the women's match goes, I think the original idea was to do Rhea Ripley's team versus Liv Morgan's team, and then Rhea Ripley got hurt, and it's kind of a mess right now, but you'll see what happens on Raw next week, and I feel like they should have just done, and this is me knowing the spoiler information, I think they should have just done a traditional Survivor Series match, but I get what they were going with the match. And it'll be a very good match. It does make sense, even though the teaming feels very thrown together, but the actual the headline of the match, whose teams are going at it, like it makes sense. So I'll just leave it at that. And as far as the men's, and we do have a few super chats here, which I'll get to here momentarily. The men's match, I agree with the other comments. Should have been 4-on-4. Knowing what happens on Raw, and even based off of the Raw spoilers, it's not 100% guaranteed. And let me throw this out there. There's some negative comments on social media, like Triple H wrote about Survivor Series. He tweeted, he put out a poster which shows the 8 guys, the 4 Bloodline, new and old, the 8 guys for that match. And people are like, it should be 4-on-4. And that's like the top comments in replying to Triple H. They could somehow try to change it, you know, on SmackDown and Raw. They could edit things and they could work around it and somehow revert it back to 4-on-4 if they really feel there's a lot of negative feedback. I'm not a fan based off of what I read on Raw. To me, it's lazy. And if you know the spoiler, you know what I'm talking about. It felt like something we've seen before. Not really a fan of it. So Mr. Anderson sent in a $2 super chat, says, will Bronson Reed and Seth Rollins join War Games? Well, there was a tease on Raw. We know that much. There was a tease with Seth Rollins possibly joining both sides, and he turned them down. And it made sense. Like Rollins said, I'll never team with Roman Reigns. And I liked that. So if Rollins ends up being the guy, they're really going to have to sell that big time to make that believable, because Rollins is like the last guy to be working with Roman Reigns. Remember all that shit earlier this year for WrestleMania 40? Like I just can't imagine it. So if it's Rollins, and I'm not saying it is, but if it is, they got some serious explaining to do. Okay, Virtue, you, and then
that's it. I'm just going to spoil it. You got 3 seconds to tune out.
All right.
3, 2, 1. Here's exactly what happened.
Oh, he's muted. He muted himself.
There you go.
Yeah.
that was
There
the
you go.
smartest thing you've ever said in the history of the NoDQ review.
Anybody who missed it is lesser for that now.
All right,
so you know.
JJ, top
Hey,
that.
you do realize that all happened by design, and I hit the mute button on purpose.
you did?
It still made me pop. I love it. It's over with me, brother.
There's
Um,
no way anyone can top
NoDQ.com is where you can get those spoilers.
Facts.
There's no way
Um,
anyone can top that. But my question was going to be, if it is Seth, should he
If.
come out as the Shield version, since that's when he was brothers with Roman?
Yeah.
If it is Seth, it's definitely
If.
not going to be because he wants to team with Roman. I think it's going to be more because he wants to get back at maybe some payback at a
Some
spoiler
payback.
that happens. Yeah.
Yeah, something
So it
might
has-
happen, and he's going to be mad, even though, isn't that what
Right.
happened with Jey Uso? Jey Uso got screwed over, and then Jey joins Roman's team because something happened to him and he got screwed over. And surely WWE would not repeat that story-line again on a future episode.
And
of
that's
Monday Night
tough
Raw.
about not seeing it with our eyes. If we just read things, then it's
Right.
like, well, how bad, whatever. How much was it effective against getting him upset?
Yeah, Matthew.
Well, one thing from last night that really isn't in the spoilers for next week, so I am kind of curious, is remember they had Jimmy interact with Braun Breaker. So could that have been a tease at a possible member, or is this leading to Jimmy possibly trying to have a match for the IC title?
Yeah, I mean, hey, maybe Braun Breaker's the guy. We'll have to wait and see next Monday night on Raw. Could be Braun Breaker. Could be any number of people.
And then
they
keep
teased
in
Rey
mind-
Mysterio.
Like you said, Aaron, there are still shows after that. They can change it, or they can decide, well, let's go this direction instead based on feedback. Maybe this was all done by design to get fan feedback. I don't know.
Maybe they taped something and they have no intentions on airing it, and it's just to throw off everybody.
Why not? I mean, like, remember they let fans record Kevin Owens beating up Cody Rhodes? So
All right, we got a few more super chats here. So Mr. Anderson sent in $2. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. He says, to Gino, idea of CM Punk, will McIntyre join Solo? So CM Punk on Roman's team and Drew McIntyre on Solo's team. I mean, just throwing that idea out there. And hey, maybe it happens on Raw. Never say never, right? Gino?
I do feel like you could, milk more out of their feud, but it's probably best that they both go their separate ways on that. But I mean, that would be, Drew's one of the top heels in the company right now. It would definitely add some credibility to Solo's team, which essentially half their team just absolutely aren't over. Like Fatu just completely overshadows the other Tongans. So it wouldn't hurt to add some credibility there.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And I'll say this, like going back to earlier, The Rock would make sense to me. I love Brock Lesnar, but beyond that, not a fan of Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes getting involved. I'm not a fan of Seth Rollins and Bronson Reed getting involved. And I'm not really a fan of CM Punk and Drew McIntyre getting involved. Their feud is done, as Uthman pointed out in the chat room. There's no need to do that. So I would prefer 4-on-4, and you never know. They may change plans. Maybe. I don't remember a time where WWE like filmed something and then did a complete swerve. And I would not rule it out in the Triple H era. So we'll see what happens. Dylan sent in a $5 super chat, says, and thank you, Dylan, for the super chat, says, the women's War Games match, without spoiling, this year makes absolutely no sense. If it was a traditional Survivor Series match, fine, but not this. I actually don't mind it being War Games because I feel that it is a personal feud at the top of the match. But yeah, I'm just in general not a fan of 2 War Games matches on the same show. I prefer with them just sticking to one. I mean, they're always entertaining, but you know, I'd like to have one War Games match or one Elimination Chamber match or one Money in the Bank match. You know, I feel like they want to do the equality, which is fine, but I feel like they should spread these out. Like maybe do one men's War Games match, but don't call it War Games. And same thing with the women, you know, spread them out. Have one men's match like in January, and then July you do the women's match, and, you know, spread them out. Each year the men get a War Games match. Each year the women get a War Games match, but don't make it a pay-per-view. That's just my take on it. I don't know if anybody else has a different opinion on it. JJ, anything you want to add?
My biggest concern about the women's War Games match, and I'm going to go ahead and bust her out, even though I'm a huge fan of Jade Cargill. I don't think she's ready for a War Games match.
I'll find out.
You know, everyone still talks about how green she is, how horrible of a wrestler she is. I think she's improved by leaps and bounds since her AEW work, but I still don't think she's ready for a War Game situation.
Well, she could be thrown into a cage, lay down for a while, then come up, hit a couple big boots, and then get thrown into a cage
But
again.
see, JJ, I get what you're saying there, but sometimes a match like this can be the breakout that somebody like her needs.
I agree.
And with that many people, too, you know, she doesn't have to do too much work. She doesn't have to carry the load too much. She can just come in, do her moves, and then take a bump. Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want her out there first to kick off the match. That's for sure. We got one more super chat here from This Guy Experience, who we'll try to get on in a future NoDQ review in the next couple of weeks. This guy says, too bad no Bloodline versus the Judgment Day. Judgment Day not as hot today. I mean, yeah, I think they missed the opportunity for that. Judgment Day at this point, like, who do you take seriously in that group? Anybody?
Dom.
Yeah, I was gonna joke Dirty
you?
Dom, but
When Dominic is the most credible guy in the group right now, like, yeah, unfortunately that ship has sailed. But yeah, Bloodline versus Bloodline was the match. We've all said it. I think it would have been best at 4-on-4, and it may still be great regardless of what they do. But like I said, I feel like based off of what happened on Raw, they got some explaining to do to really make me believe it. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, great show, everybody. And we're going to hit just under an hour, maybe, because we go around and do our last call that we want to do our plugs or whatever, and we'll see what the NoDQ Galaxy does here. But, Matthew, welcome back on the review. I know you said you were on 300, but here you are officially now part of the NoDQ review crew. Last words for you.
Just, thanks to you and Aaron for letting me be on. I hope to be on again. It's always a privilege and a pleasure. And, just check out NoDQ.com. And, I look forward to what we have planned next. I guess that would be the predictions for SummerSlam and Full Gear.
Our Survivor Series
and Full Gear. But, just look forward to that and look forward to the review for Dynamite and SmackDown.
Hey, for people that say, "Oh, Virtue never picks AEW topics," I picked the promo topic, and everybody said MJF, who's part of AEW. So, bam, there you have it. Okay, thank you, Matthew. Colin.
Well, I don't really have any plugs these days. So head over nodq.com/merch. You can get a hat. You can see it right there or see it on my head. Get a t-shirt, stickers, whatever. Buy something. Holidays are coming. Everybody needs a nice present.
That I'm sorry shirt's great, by the way. That
It
I'm
is.
sorry shirt with the crying face on it.
I got it hanging in my closet upstairs. It is a good one. Every time I wear it, my daughter asks me why my shirt's so sad. So, um, no, good topics. I'm looking forward to see how this all pans out, and I'll try
Yeah,
to
we
be
had
back
some
next
fun
week.
with that spoiler, though. I like that. Remember, you
Yeah.
can go to NoDQ.com to get your news. I'm sure Aaron has those spoilers posted over there, but you don't have to click on them if you don't like spoilers, so it's optional. All right, thank you, Colin.
Yeah.
Gino.
See you.
Yeah. Thanks again for having us or having me. I appreciate it,
Well-
guys. This has been an absolute pleasure. If you guys like what I had to say, you can check me out on my own YouTube channel, Papagino0017. I do some live stream gaming. We just have some fun and get some kills. And yeah, guys, I really appreciate being here. And it's nice to meet all the new people that I've got to meet through here. And yeah, it's just great to have a place that we can all talk wrestling with each other. So thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Virtue, for allowing that to exist.
No problem. And things will ramp up once we see this Rock stuff come to fruition. Even if it's against Cody, we're going to have that in the palm of our hands. I can't wait. So thank you for pushing through with us weekly and talking about wrestling while the real good stuff, meat and potatoes, is yet to come. JJ.
Thank you again for having me, Virtue. As always, thank you, Aaron. You can find me on social medias. You can find and follow all of us with the Simply Reliable Studios at the YouTube channels listed below. The only reliable SRS in professional wrestling. Damn it. But yeah. Find me on socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I tried that Blue Sky that's going around now, signed up for that, so you can find me there.
All right. Thank you, JJ. Okay, Aaron.
All right, so we got one more quick little topic here. I don't know if anybody saw it, but Emmanuel sent in $2. Thank you for that. Best and worst War Games matches. Well, I'll go first. We can go around. Best ones, definitely the Bloodline match from 2022 is one of my favorites, and a lot of the NXT Black and Gold ones were great, and even that first one, which was like the new guard versus the old guard. I think it was 2001. Or 2021, excuse me. That was a great one. And then in WCW, that 92 one with the Dangerous Alliance, I really liked that one. Worst ones, probably the 98 one in WCW with Hulk Hogan. And I think that was like the 3-team one, DDP and Hogan and Nash. It was terrible. That was an awful War Games match, and a lot of those later WCW ones were not too good. I did like the 97 one though. So, JJ, any worst and best off the top of your head?
I enjoyed the last couple of years ones. I was on my hiatus pretty much before that, so I missed kind of when WWE resurrected it. Can't go wrong with some of the Crockett era ones with the Horsemen in it, like we were mentioning earlier. Worst ones, I gotta agree with you. Like the 98 one, 99, those later years in WCW were just bad.
Yeah. Gino, you got any?
What I was thinking, you already said, Aaron, so I'm just gonna piggyback off yours.
All right, fair enough. And if you want to count AEW Blood and Guts, like those were good too. Cleaver, you got anything?
My favorite, on like just off the top of my head, most recent, not going back to WCW. My favorite one, I should say, is the Undisputed Era versus Keith Lee, Dijak, Ciampa, and the return of Kevin Owens to NXT. That War Games was a fantastic match. You had a surprise element. It was just super good. And we'll give Pat McAfee when he had his War Games match too. We'll give him his team a pretty good one too. Worst ones, again, like you all said, the later WCW days. I mean, that product in general was pretty horrible at the time. So, but yeah, let's just see what this year brings. And like you said, Aaron, too, the Bloodline one from a couple of years ago. That was a great match.
Matthew, you got any?
I mean, pretty much you guys said all the ones I would have think of. Of course, I love the one with EO the first time she did the whole trash can spot off the cage. That was just crazy. You know, the modern ones were great. Last year's was really good. And probably the worst ones, you know, again, the WCW ones. And then, though it's technically not a traditional War Games one, the infamous one with Vince Russo will probably be the worst one of all.
Oh yeah. That's with all due respect, Virtue, to Vince Russo. But Virtue, you got any?
No, but I will say this. This year's Survivor Series, we could have the best, but we could also have the worst. So between the two that are going to happen. See, look what happened there. So I'll just leave that there.
All right. And shout out to good old JM, Jeff Meacham. Thank you, Jeff. He sent in $5. He says, always fun to watch and interact with the review. Looking forward to returning as soon as possible. And he wanted to add that the worst ones, the 98 one that I mentioned, and 2000 on Nitro with Vince Russo, and then his best ones, 92, that was Sting's group versus the Dangerous Alliance. That was probably my favorite of the WCW era ones. 96 was good with the NWO just as they were getting started. And then 97 was when Kurt Hennig turned against Ric Flair. That was a good one too. Like, you know, WCW definitely had some good ones, but then from 98 on kind of went south. You know, those last couple ones were not too good. So
to Russo's credit, we still talk about him today, for better or for worse.
Well, there you go. He left his legacy. So thank you for that, Vince Russo. And looking forward to Survivor Series, even though I'm not quite sure what to make of the additions, but we'll see what happens. You know, post production and SmackDown, we got some potential swerves and twists in the stories, and maybe they'll make it work out, and it should still be great. I still think, as Virtue said, the Bloodline versus Bloodline, or Bloodline and somebody else with Bloodline and somebody else, will still be a great match. Anyways, guys, make sure you stay tuned to NoDQ.com for all the latest wrestling news and rumors. No Psycho Jet Black tonight, but we still went over an hour, Virtue. Maybe he'll be back next week. Virtue, go ahead and sign us off. And shout out to Psycho Jet Black. Not sure where you were, but we missed you. Hope you're back next week. Virtue?
Follow me on X.com if you dare at NoDQ_Virtue. That's it. For Aaron, for Matthew, for Colin, for Gino, for JJ, and the whole NoDQ crew and galaxy. Good night, everybody. We will see you again next time.